Show of hands, whose favorite Simpsons character is Principal Seymour Skinner? I am expecting absolutely nobody to raise their hands, and I'm not even doing it myself. Don't get me wrong, I like Skinner, but he's not exactly in my top 10. I think he's decent and he serves a good purpose, and for what he is, he's pretty good. He just doesn't have Sideshow Bob levels of amazingness, you know? To be fair, it's pretty hard to top Sideshow Bob, but still. So why am I covering Seymour Skinner today? Well, this isn't exactly Character Quest, is it? It's anti-Character Quest, where we take a look at bad characters and give them what for. But according to that intro, Skinner's actually a pretty good character, so why is he here? It's not because of what he was, it's because of what he became. Let me tell you the sad story of Seymour Skinner. For those few of you that don't watch The Simpsons and don't know who Principal Skinner is, why are you watching the video? But anyways, if you want to watch the video anyways, let me help you out. Skinner is the principal of Springfield Elementary and is one of the arch enemies of Bart Simpson. Where Bart is all about chaos and pranks and having a good time, Skinner's about, well, exactly the opposite. He's about rules, regulations, and making sure that everyone gets a good education without spending all too much money. The best way to describe Seymour Skinner is to quote Superintendent Chalmers,
"The rod up that man's butt must have a rod up its butt."
Now, Skinner's not a bad guy or anything, he's just a guy with a job, and boy howdy is he gonna do it. And that includes groveling up to his boss, Superintendent Chalmers. Skinner fears Chalmers, and honestly for good reason. Chalmers isn't exactly a big fan of Skinner, so one small slip up and Skinner is fired. So those are the basics right there, but let me tell you what exactly happened to this guy over the course of the series. In the first few seasons, he was exactly as I described. The only man he ever feared was Superintendent Chalmers. He's an ex-army guy who's very rigid and always gets in the way of Bart's shenanigans. But it's also been shown that he has a little bit more of a sensitive side, and maybe, just maybe, he wants a little bit more out of life. Now, previously on Media Mementos, I've said that my favorite episode is Cape Fear. However, upon watching some more episodes of Simpsons Season 2, which, by the way, is the most underrated season in the entire series, I think my favorite episode is actually Principal Charming. I'm gonna give that episode its own review another day, but all I'm gonna say is this is the best Skinner episode there is. It made him more than just a stuffy guy in a suit who doesn't like Bart. He falls madly in love and decides to loosen up a bit and hey, even bond with his arch enemy. Previously in the show, it's been established that his biggest love was his job, but now, his biggest love is Patty Bouvier, even though she originally didn't really see him in any sort of way like that, but over time he softened her up and they ended up bonding. But then it all comes crashing down when Patty decides to break it off so that she can be there with Selma, who's not exactly having an easy time in life right now. The first non-Springfield Elementary related thing in his life that was going well is all gone. So that means he's gotta go back to how things used to be, maybe even a little more bitter now that he's had a taste for the outside world. Another good episode to highlight who Skinner really is The Boy Who Knew Too Much. In this episode, Bart skips out on school and Skinner knows it full well, and he's gonna prove it one way or another, even if he is a little bit out of touch. Oh wait, no, what am I saying? It's the children that are wrong. Silly me. Of course, this episode's more about Bart and his moral dilemma, but we also see a lot more of Skinner. He appreciates that Bart sold himself out to do the right thing. That, and also when he's rooming with Homer, he's, well, Seymour Skinner. The reason I'm highlighting this right now is because this is who Skinner really is. And over the course of the show, we get to see less and less of it as time goes on. At some point, it was brought up that Skinner still lives with his mother. Or as he'll constantly say whenever this is brought up,
"She lives with me."
even though that's definitely not true. And thus ushers in the new version of Skinner's character, Pathetic Sorry Seymour. This guy can do nothing right, he's hopelessly incompetent, and he's basically alienated from everyone around him. This didn't start off right away, but this is what he would become later on. At first, this was a little bit of a way to humiliate him in a sense. Skinner, despite being just a principal of an elementary school, has a little bit of a big head. So this served to knock him down a few pegs, and it would also have his mom be a constant foil to whatever he's trying to do. Don't get me wrong, this stuff is funny, and I really appreciate this addition to his character. It can be really cathartic to see a stuffy guy get taken down by his crotchety old mom, But then they started using it more and more and more. It got to the point where Skinner basically just became a pathetic goof and not the guy he used to be. His relationship with Edna started off as him being a stuffy guy who wanted to get away from his mom, and it balanced both elements of his character quite well. Sometimes one element would get more focus, sometimes the other would. But then we get Special Edna, or as I call it, the episode where Skinner changed forever. And no, that's not the principal and the Pauper, though I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. Skinner is just boiled down to a sad sack loser mama's boy who can't get anything right. All that stuff about him being a stickler, all that stuff about him being married to his job, quote unquote, all gone. He's just the town loser, basically. And even at the end where they try to have a touching moment with him proposing to Edna, they still try to make it about his mom. There's a lot of episodes that people point to saying, this is the episode where The Simpsons stopped being good. This is the point where I gave up. Now for me, I will admit that Season 9 started the downward spiral, but I think that there are a lot of episodes in between that and Season 15 that are pretty good. But I did have an episode that made me give up. That was My Big Fat Geek Wedding. This, again, boiled Seymour to being just a joke. Much like in Principal Charming, everything that he had good in his life is now gone forever. However, the Patty and Skinner thing was only meant to last one episode, and it was a compelling yet short-lived relationship. Seymour and Edna also was a compelling relationship, but it lasted for years and years and years. And then to have it end like this, Seymour just being a stupid goofball, and then being a stupid goofball to get her back, and then failing because he's a stupid goofball, ruining a really good story arc and something that really made this not super popular character shine, just for the sake of having another bumbling moronic character. Because let's face it, The Simpsons didn't already have enough of those, right? Or how about his relationship with the other teachers? I'm not talking about in the same way that he had a relationship with Edna. I'm talking about how he's able to boss people around like Willie or Lunch Lady Doris. He was able to command some authority before, even if he did bumble a little bit here and there. Kind of like in the episode The PTA Disbands. He's not exactly a fierce guy, but he's definitely a force to be reckoned with, even if he does have some missteps here and there. And of course Chalmers can still berate him, so we gotta keep that in the story. So why does the earlier portrayal of Skinner work and the later portrayal not work? It's all about one key word: balance. Remember how I mentioned that the Skinner and Edna relationship was good because it had both sides of his character on display? Yeah, that's what makes a good character, and honestly, that's something that The Simpsons has really struggled with, especially in recent years. They've boiled their characters down to basically having one, maybe two personality traits, and that's about it. We have Lisa Simpson going from being the smartest kid in the family, but still being exactly that, a kid, to being a smarter-than-you, boring stick in the mud who's no fun at all. We have Homer going from a dependable yet stupid father who kind of messes things up here and there to being a complete blithering idiot, or an outright malicious jerk. Heck, the show coined the term Flanderization through what they did with Ned Flanders. It took Ned, who was a happy-go-lucky Christian neighbor to Homer who was always there to turn the other cheek, in fact every cheek on his body, to being an alt-right Christian stereotype who's the honorary captain of the No Fun Patrol. The same thing happened to Skinner, but in a little bit of a unique way. They didn't take something that was there from the beginning and then make that his only character. Instead, they introduced something a little bit into the show, and then ran with that, obscuring what he used to be. The reason is because Skinner wasn't really that much of a popular character. It's not that people disliked him or anything, it's just that you'd have a hard time finding some real dedicated fans of his. So they added that new element to him to spice things up and get people a little bit more interested. In fact, that's why they made the infamous episode The Principal and the Pauper. They knew that this character wasn't really that popular or well-liked by fans, so the crew decided to do something really experimental and out of the norm, and guess what? It failed miserably. Because even though Skinner was never really one of the fan favorites, people knew who he was supposed to be, even with this new added element of him being kind of a goofy mama's boy. The viewers felt that making him Armin Tanzarian, erasing his whole past, and accidentally retconning the Flying Hellfish episode was all a big slap in the face. Sure enough, they only mentioned Armin Tamzarian once, and they basically pretend that he was always Seymour Skinner, but that didn't stop them from changing his character from one that stood out enough, but wasn't really there to be super well liked, into just another idiot, just another guy who could never have anything go right at all. Every single thing that Skinner has ever had in his life that he liked has either been taken away from him or has been ruined. Even his job at the school is not safe because now Bart can push him around and do whatever he wants with almost no consequence. Skinner's not an authority figure anymore, so what does it matter? And that there is the sad story of Seymour Skinner, a guy who had not really it all, but had enough, and now has absolutely nothing, and because of the state of The Simpsons right now, it's very likely that it's not going to get better, and in fact, might even get far, far worse. Well, folks, thanks for watching the video. What'd you guys think? What do you think of Seymour Skinner? And what do you think is the worst bit of Flanderization in The Simpsons? Comment below and let us know, because we're always excited to hear what you guys have to say.
Real quick, I'd like to thank our Patreon executive producer. I gotcha. It's not Trevor, it's me, Billy. Quite the twist, huh? Anyway, I'd like to thank our Patreon producers, Leaf Razor, Valkyria, Whoop-Doo, Michaela Bellamy, MD the Dude, Blackjack, Nightingale Wednesday Nightmare, and Unkale. If you would also like your name read at the end of every video of ours, then please consider donating to the Patreon below, in the description, as we say in every video. But now it's time for the comment of the day. This one comes from Just Yumi. A Capcom-developed Shrek game could be something great, especially since the isometric angle reminds me of Mega Man Battle Network. Freemium isn't free. Yeah, I definitely think a Shrek game developed by Capcom would have been pretty cool, especially when you bring up Mega Man Battle Network, which I think I actually did play and I owned a t-shirt of. But honestly, I think something in the vein of Final Fight would actually be pretty cool for a Shrek game. I mean, Shrek already had 2 Game Boy Advance titles that were side-scrolling beat-em-ups, and Shrek is pretty synonymous with fighting in a lot of video games, so why not? And yeah, freemium sucks. But yeah, that's that. And I should probably end with something relating to the video. Skinner? Yeah, that's all I got.